Good morning, Jerry. How you doing?
Sean, RJ, I'm doing great today, and really good to be on with you, and doesn't it feel good to be 9-4?
Absolutely, and it feels good, in our opinion. We've been doing this show, I think, 11 years here, Jerry, and we cannot remember a time where we were as excited for the defense to get on the field. The other day, it was like, all right, you got all these offensive weapons, get the defense on the field to see who's going to get after the quarterback next. Are you sharing that same defensive excitement?
I sure am. I think frankly, I do have to go back to the early 90s when we had this many, especially our front guys, our defensive front. And we had a rotation. We had enough that the drop-off wasn't as distinguished from one to the other, and that let them really have the numbers of plays that keeps them fresh. And that's a big deal. And we were on that the other night. We all were anxiously awaiting to see Gregory and Lawrence and see Parsons out there at the same time. But the interior there, those guys with Osa, as well as the new returnees, Tristan and with Gallimore in there. And it was really rewarding to see. It's hard to handle. We know it presents a lot of problems. We have those kinds of problems when we run up against fronts that have numbers of guys that can be threats to be a pressure player. So it's really good to see. There's no question it's a strength of the team. Normally, this time of year, everybody's to some degree struggling with their numbers, struggling with injury, and really having to make some adjustments. We certainly are having to make ours, but this is unique and rare to see this influx of this kind of talent join a team at this kind of year, this time of year.
So you said it was the strength of the team, so you think this is the better unit than the offense right now?
Well, I said certainly we played that way the other day. This thing is a balance. It's a continual adjusting. We're certainly going through that right now on our offense. We know this offense, what it's capable of. We've seen it. There's no adage in football about a player. Once you've seen him do it, you know he can do it. You've just got to figure out ways and circumstances to put him in a position to do it. Well, we've got have seen our offense click. We can get it clicking. There's no question in my mind. I'd much rather be dealing from this vantage point of where we've had the kind of success and we've got the ebbs and flows we're dealing with. We've got to improve offensively, but we've seen this group do it. We've seen them do it individually. I've got real confidence that we can get better there over these next 4 ball games.
Jerry, Micah is like becoming a superstar. Everyone around the whole country is talking about him. Brian Broaddus, who you know very well, probably unfortunately you know very well, works with us, said, he said,
don't be so hard on me or Brian. I don't know which one you're talking
about. Jerry, he said he didn't see this pass rushing on his Penn State tape, that maybe they were planning to use him there before he sat out for the season. How did y'all see this with the pass rushing ability based upon him coming out?
Oh, I saw it. We did see it now. We saw it from the inside. I was skeptical that he could be effective from the inside in the NFL with the big guards and especially the type of interior players he was going to play against. But if you recall in the draft, we really thought with Smith, Jalen Smith, as well as Van Der Esch, we really weren't kicked in the butt about drafting an inside linebacker or an interior inside. Well, that's it, but a linebacker. And that was a big criteria. Can this guy be a rusher? Can he actually put pressure? And we saw it from the inside, but we didn't see it as much from the outside. But that's when the size, the speed, the burst, that's when that took over in the judgment area. But from the standpoint of him being able to rush from the outside, you might have questioned a little his length. but at that size, not necessarily his, not anything about his ability to have the quickness. But his length, you might think of an outside down rusher with more size when I'm talking about length here. Other than that, it looked like that he could be a natural out there, but you wouldn't have wanted to just spend, or were reluctant to spend that kind of pick that high. And of course, the corners had gone away that we were interested in, but the fact that he had the pass rushing, not potential, but yes, potential. What you didn't see that we see now is inside him, and see this just outstanding, not just competitiveness, but achievement-oriented person. And he is that, and he does something about it when he's on the practice field. He's been so consistent since the day he got on the field, extending himself to try to get better and better and better. And then, of course, his range of being able to not only think about it, but execute on it by putting himself, and the coach is putting himself in pass coverage situations is just certainly impressive. What you saw was his size, weight, speed. You saw him do it on the inside some, and felt like that he could pressure, but didn't know if he could handle to have the elusiveness inside to be hard to block. And he is hard to block.
Jerry Jones right here on 105.3 The Fan. I know how you feel about comparisons. I know they get you in trouble, but they're happening everywhere, especially with the Giants coming up. Are the Lawrence Taylor comparisons crazy for him?
Well, I won't make a comparison for the very reasons you just talked about. Every time I've always been criticized for that,
yeah.
And he shouldn't have that. He has a uniqueness. He's unbelievably established this kind of awareness of just people making these types of comments about him. That ought to stand on its own. That's the other unique thing. He really doesn't have to have a comparison at this point. He's having that kind of production on the field.
Jerry, you referenced the offense earlier. We know what they're capable of. It's not been happening recently. Do you think Dak is in a slump right now?
Oh, I don't want to say that slump, but that's probably fair. But it's such a faceted evaluation. But I would say that our offense is definitely away from where we were playing 5 and 6 games ago from the standpoint of production. What the opposing defenses have to do with it needs to be considered. But what I do think is the case is that we've got to go out and will play with confidence that no matter what they throw at us. Now, look at it this way, and this is the way I'm looking at it. I've heard criticism, and I've been a part of a team that has been criticized for not having enough playbook, for not having enough variety when we get to the playoffs. And so when you do get in the playoffs, you're doing some of the same old, same old. I know that staffs try to anticipate the playoffs, and they try to put some things in that they might use that they haven't been using during the year. Because, boy, I don't think these opposing coaches can't catch up with what you're doing offensively on their defensive side of the ball. So what we've done is really had some hellacious practice, if you will, on how to make adjustments and how to throw things at them when and if you get to the playoffs that defenses haven't seen before. That's the process that we'll need to come out and get more production from our offense.
Mm-hmm. Is Dak healthy?
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. It's easy to point to the fact. Now, he missed a lot of time in training camp, and he missed a lot of time early with that calf injury. And some say, well, his mechanics are off a little bit. His feet and his motion aren't quite where they ought to be. I hear all that. And by the way, that's discussed. But is there merit to it? I don't think so. I think just as he's had to his entire career, he will get in. He will figure it out. That's the key thing here. He has no superior in working on it, studying it, taking it to the practice field, repetition. He's as good or better than anybody I've ever seen. And so he will mentally and physically rep this through.
Do you think he right now is mentally trusting his body?
Excuse me, I missed that conversation.
Do you think mentally he trusts his body, that he's healthy?
Yes, I do. I sure do. I think he's playing smart in a lot of cases relative to how he extends a play, whether he runs with the ball or not. And boy, that's the best thing that I could think of, because he has to play smart. You've got to. Availability is right there with ability, as we know from time a year ago with him.
The other day I said, another example why they're the Dallas Cowboys and America's team, because no other team would have a story blow up like your sideline benches with what you brought in for the Washington game. Were you aware that this was being talked about so much? It became such a big deal, Jerry, with what you were using on the sideline?
Well, it doesn't surprise me. I did learn a few rules during this process that what you can and can't do, but I'll chalk this one up to our vendors. Got pretty aggressive when they sent us the menus, and it's interesting. And again, it does make the point of the kind of interest or the kind of visibility or the kind of issue. As the guy said, that the very first time I really talked television with a network executive, his name was Dan Burke, ABC, they had just bought ESPN. And he said, boy, I'm going to tell you something. We can't beat it. It's a new soap opera every day, in between plays, in between quarters, in between games, all year round. There's always something. And the Cowboys lead the way, but certainly that's the NFL.
Jerry Jones here with Sean and RJ, brought to you by Ford. With you guys sitting pretty in the East right now, it's not over, and the Giants struggling. Do you think you guys can use Sunday as kind of a get healthy game, Jerry? Tyron looking like he's going to be out. What do you do with Pollard? You got some injuries with Zeke, a little bit banged up. Could this be a get healthy opportunity against the Giants?
Not at all. Not at all. We've got to play this game as though this was for the marbles. I think the second half the other day shows us there's no giving. We all let down a little bit going into that second half in our thoughts, well, maybe this one's in the bag. We all had that feeling. And if anything, we saw that that's not the case. And, boy, they've got players, whoever you're playing, have players that can make those plays, make those inordinate plays. And your team can make a bad play. And before you know it, you're right there and fighting. And that's what makes this thing so interesting. But no, we'll go to New York as though everything's on the line. We'll play that way.
Would you like McCarthy to guarantee this one too, and just everyone here on out, just guarantee them every week?
Well, I haven't read, but I sure agreed and didn't mind him making that comment the other day. The main thing is that I knew, as I said the other day, he had been pinned up. He'd been in that hotel room for 10 days, and he was ready to bite something. So here he came, and it was reflected certainly in the way the defense hit the field, and his attitude was reflected by the team, I thought. Listen, I know we all at the second half were disappointed, to say the least. But on the other hand, let's give that Washington team some due. They're coming back in here. And I'm going to tell you something. They were missing some people, but they are tough defensively. They have been. and they're going to be tough defensively when we play them in Dallas. These games are no cakewalk, and you're lucky to come out with a win.
Jerry, when Tyron's out, we're used to seeing Steele over there, Collins in his natural position of right tackle. Are you still feeling like that's going to be the case, or do you think Nsekhe could take his spot?
No, I think you'll see Steele over there, and surprise me if you don't. We'll see how the week pans out here, but certainly Collins has had a good game. Sorry we missed him there at the end, but boy, he's the enforcer for the offensive line. So I think that's what you'll see. We'll see how the week goes, though.
Did you like that from Lael, defending his quarterback, being an offensive lineman yourself?
Do you know that it really doesn't matter whether I like it or not, and I do. I don't like us to see suffer penalties, but on the other hand, he's the guy they call the enforcer, as you've heard, and so there's no question that a big part of the identity of him and the offensive line is to enforce and protect the quarterback. And so he's doing his job.
Jerry, is Tyron's kind of last couple of years, the injury history, is that an organizational concern moving forward in terms of his future here with the Cowboys?
I think he's been bitten here by just timing. But if you look at any player that has been in the trenches, and he has been, then you're going to see these things pop up from time to time as they move on down through the years. He came in as the youngest player in the NFL, and his second year was still the youngest player in the NFL. So he started off with a youth advantage. And so, but he's got to keep an eye on things. And the good news about this is we'll miss him Sunday. But we'll for sure have him as we get on into the last part of the season and into the playoffs relative to these injuries that he's dealing with.
Jerry, how are you feeling about Tony Pollard for Sunday? Steven said it was close to a game-time decision. You think he could be healthy enough to play?
I'll go along with that. I'm positive, though. I'm real positive. They can address this injury, and this will give him a total of 3 weeks off of it, 10 days, and then almost 3 weeks off of it. That should help him.
Jerry, last one. The league announced yesterday that they're going to mandate the booster shot through, and everybody has to have it tier 1, tier 2 by the next 2 weeks. Was that in response to yesterday's kind of realization that 37 players had tested positive?
I'm sure it is, because now we realize that the league cannot mandate that players get the booster shot. We can't mandate that, but we can mandate that the staff and the second-tier identified staff get the shot. And, yes, I agree with that, but we're all very aware. I'm proud, frankly. You know, we've had only one player in 2 years of the COVID. One player hospitalized in the NFL in 2 years, just one. And he recovered completely. But the point is, we've done such a great job at the NFL level regarding our players. And then, of course, it really has to be noted here of the infrequency of any ways you can point a finger that anybody has gotten COVID from going to the game, our fans. And we were the poster child last year. We didn't have any real recorded instance of the COVID spreading by virtue of leading the league in attendance with almost 22% of the whole league in attendance at the Cowboys. And where I'm going with that is I feel real good about, number one, the fans coming to the games, but number two, which is not your question, but number two, I feel good about how we're evolving through the season with how we're on the move. We're looking at it every week, and hopefully we'll work through this period of time when we're having a COVID.
Jerry, it's always more fun after a win. Let's keep it going. Have a good trip to New York, and we'll catch up with you next week. Thank you.
You bet, guys. These are good times. Let's keep it on the roll.